Exposed, 10 Sinister Babysitting Encounters in Haunted Appalachia That Will Chill Your Soul. Sarah hadn't planned on stepping into a horror story, but as she drove deep into the heart of Appalachia, fog swirled around her car like a living thing. Every twist of the road seemed to whisper warnings, a chorus of dread that pulled against her from the trees. She was just a college student looking to make some quick cash, lured by a last-minute babysitting gig in a small, isolated town. Pulling up to the old farmhouse, the wind howled through its cracked windows, an eerie welcome that sent chills surging up her spine. As she stepped out, the locals watched her with wary eyes. Their murmurs hung in the air, heavy and knowing, speaking of the house's dark past. "Best stay out of the rooms upstairs and don't mind the friends that come to visit after dark," they said, half smiling, half warned. Sarah dismissed them as small-town folklore, her laughter echoing through the chill. But as she approached the door, a tremor of unease settled over her. Inside, the warmth of the living room did little to alleviate her nervousness. 3 children, 2 boys and a girl, were a stark contrast to the gloom outside. They darted about, laughter brightening the air, but their parents had left cryptic instructions that tightened the knots of dread in Sarah's stomach. "Stay out of certain rooms, don't engage with the friends at night." She shrugged it off, settling on the couch, half-heartedly joining in their chatter while her phone displayed a cruel message: no signal. But as shadows stretched longer through the dusk, the children's laughter took on an uneasy tone. A chilling silence crashed down as the farmhouse creaked, a living thing with secrets. The kids' faces turned pale, the glimmer of fear sparking in their eyes. And then she heard it, a whisper, barely there, curling round her ears like smoke. Just the wind, she tried to convince herself, but her heart hammered at her ribcage. Suddenly, one of the boys dashed down the hall, laughter echoing, innocence slipping through the cracks of the house's dark history. Panic quaked in Sarah's chest as she chased after him, past family portraits with hollow eyes that seemed to follow her every move. Then crash! The sound exploded from the attic, sending her racing back to the living room where the kids huddled together, fear etched across their faces. "What was that?" she asked, trying to sound braver than she felt. The children exchanged glances, their voices trembling as they recounted tales of past babysitters who had vanished into the night. Sarah's comforting words felt hollow as she recalled a story from the local diner, a guardian of the house linked to a betrayal and haunting justice. "Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Just then, a storm roared to life outside, rain lashing against the windows, plunging the farmhouse into deeper darkness. The lights flickered ominously, and her phone went dead, cutting her off completely. The children's wide eyes reflected her fears, the air thick with unspoken dread. Then the oldest girl, trembling, leaned in to whisper a secret about their family's dark past and the folklore that bound them to shadows walking among the trees. Tension rose, pressing against Sarah's chest. A loud bang at the door shattered the silence, the children's fearful whispers choking off. The air turned electric, and Sarah's instincts screamed to flee. Who or what stood waiting for her outside? As dread eclipsed her thoughts, the haunting truth began to surface: the real horror wasn't just in the stories, but where trust had led her, and the darkness looming beyond her grasp, promising no escape. The children's gazes flickered toward the door, their breaths coming in nervous pants. Sarah's heart raced as she stepped forward, every instinct screaming at her to retreat. Clenching her fists, she strained to hear the sound that had drawn all the life from the room. Another thud, sharper this time, echoed from the depths of the house, a heavy, deliberate sound that reverberated in her bones. "Stay here," she whispered, though her voice wavered. The kids nodded, their eyes widening as if she had just provided them with a lifeline. She could feel their fear, a palpable thing that clung to the air between them like cobwebs in the corner of the dusky room. Slowly, she made her way to the front door. The wind howled, pushing against her, almost as if it wished to keep her inside. With trembling hands, she turned the knob, the wood groaning under her weight, revealing a dark and rain-drenched porch. The air was thick with the smell of damp earth and something rancid, lurking just beyond her reach. She peered into the shadows, her pulse quickening with each passing second. "Hello?" Her voice bounced off the treetops, swallowed by the night. Silence lingered, then a soft creaking sounded overhead. With growing dread, she glanced back at the living room, to where the children still sat huddled together, their eyes shining with terror. The temptation to close the door and fortify it against whatever was out there gnawed at her. But curiosity, that treacherous thief of reason, pushed her forward. Taking a deep breath, she stepped out into the storm. The steps of the porch squelched underfoot, and Sarah's rain-soaked clothes clung to her skin as she searched for any sign of movement. A flash of lightning lit the horizon, illuminating the trees lining the property. And there it was, a figure standing between the oaks, shrouded in shadows, too still, too silent. "Hey! Who's there?" She called out, her voice rising in both hope and fear. The figure remained unresponsive, draped in darkness like a cloak, hiding secrets that begged to be uncovered. She took a cautious step forward and suddenly, the front door slammed shut behind her. Panic surged as she whipped around, but the sound of the latch clicking echoed in her ears, trapping her outside. "Kids!" she yelled, but the wind drowned out her voice, whisking it away into the stormy abyss. Despair crashed over her. Heart pounding, she pressed her palms against the door, but there was no give. She was alone, cut off from the very light she had been clinging to. Then she remembered the stories. The whispers about the house, the friends that came after dark. She turned back to the figure, the air thick with dread. "What do you want?" she demanded, her voice barely louder than a whisper. The shadow shifted, taking a step forward, revealing a face, a pale, hollow visage with a knowing grin that sent chills spiraling down her spine. "We're here for you," it whispered, each word dripping with malicious glee. Before she could scream, a hand grabbed her shoulder, freezing her in place. As she spun around in terror, the door creaked open again, dark figures spilling into the dim light. The laughter of the children echoed once more, twisted and taunting, urging her to join them in their eternal game. In that moment, fear locked her in place, and she realized she might not be the only one trapped inside the dark legacy of the farmhouse. What began as a babysitting gig was spiraling into something much, much worse. As cold hands reached out for her, panic clawed at her throat. Sarah's last thought screamed in her mind, who would keep her safe now? And then, as the darkness enveloped her, she knew the real nightmare was just beginning. The figures that spilled through the door weren't just shadows, they were the very embodiment of the darkness Sarah had feared. The children's faces twisted, their innocent features now marred by something sinister. Their laughter echoed in her ears like the tolling of a death bell, sending shivers down her spine. "Join us, Sarah," one of them called, a girl with wide, glassy eyes that glimmered with unholy glee. "We've been waiting for you." Panic surged again, tearing at her insides. She turned, but the shadow from the trees had shifted closer, now almost within reach. It held out a hand, a semblance of warmth amidst the chilling wind, but she felt nothing but decay. Every instinct told her to run, to find a way back inside, yet her feet felt glued to the ground. "Let her go." Another voice rang out from the children. They were usually so sweet, so loving, but now they sounded almost hungry. "We want to play. Forever." The air thickened with tension as they encroached, their movements eerily synchronized as if they were part of a grotesque dance. Sarah's throat tightened around a scream that didn't come. She felt their anticipation like a living thing, coiling around her, suffocating her. The reality of her situation hit hard. "You're not my kid," she stammered, shaking her head. But the chill in the air confirmed her worst fears. This was no game. Nothing was real here, and she was surrounded by something far more dangerous than mere children. Lightning flashed again, illuminating the edge of the woods where she saw a line of pale faces watching, all just as hollow and eager. They were the lost, trapped in this ghastly realm, forever unaware, waiting for others to join them in their torment. "Play with us," they chorused, the words merging into a single menacing cry that reverberated in her ears. She took a step back, her heart racing as she bumped against the hard surface of the door. It felt like her last sanctuary, but its agony was sharp in her hands, and a splitting headache pulsed at her temples. "Please," Sarah gasped, her breath sharp and frantic. "I need to get back inside. You can't keep me here." The laughter from the children pierced through her desperation, high and musical, yet underlined with something chilling. "You're wrong, Sarah. You're already inside and you can't leave." In that moment, a wave of dread crashed over her, tightening around her heart. She was just a babysitter, but now she was caught in something ages old, much darker than the wind howling around and the storm raging above. Goosebumps prickled along her arms as she realized that the house wasn't just watching, it was a living, breathing entity that thrived on their fears, their pain. The figure from the trees stepped closer, revealing more of its ghastly form. Its features were indistinct, a blurry mishmash of faces with sunken eyes and mouths bent into smirks. "We have such fun here," it crooned, and a dreadful longing filled Sarah, a yearning to give in, to join those twisted souls in an eternal game, trapped in madness. Before she could process it, the children lunged forward, hands outstretched, fingers curling like hungry vipers. The grasp of death seemed all too real. In a desperate act, Sarah squirmed, breaking free long enough to stumble away from the door. She turned and ran, not knowing where she was going, only that she had to escape the frozen embrace of the abyss behind her. But the laughter was blaring now, deafening, chasing her into the darkness. Was it truly worth it to escape, if it meant facing a new kind of horror? As Sarah sprinted into the woods, the trees loomed, shadows intertwining with the darkness of despair. But something was waiting just beyond the reach of the branches, a glimmer of light or the final stretch of darkness. What lay ahead could be salvation or her final descent. Would she find a way out, or would she succumb to the evils lurking just beyond the shadows? Branches snagged at her skin, sharp as barbed wire, each scrape a reminder of the danger closing in behind her. She stumbled, her breath coming in gasps, the familiar sounds of the world fading as the laughter of the children echoed through the trees, an unending chorus of mockery and malevolence. "Turn back, Sarah." The wind seemed to scream, but she pressed on. The pounding of her heart drowned out the laughter, replaced by the rush of her own blood surging in her ears. She needed a plan. A way to fight back. But all she felt was dread. Lightning flashed again, illuminating a path ahead. It was narrow and wound like a serpent through the jagged trees. Clenching her fists, she sprinted forward, feet pounding against the damp earth. Her mind raced. How could this be happening? Familiar faces, twisted by evil, tearing at her sanity. She couldn't shake the image of their eyes, empty yet gleaming with hunger. They weren't just lost, they were predators. How could she protect herself from something so profoundly wrong? The deeper she ran into the woods, the more oppressive the air became, heavy with the scent of damp leaves and something else, decay, perhaps, but with an underlying sweetness that turned her stomach. The ground quaked beneath her, as if the very earth was alive, laughing along with the children. Sarah stumbled again, her foot catching on a root, sending her sprawling to the forest floor. Panic surged through her as she scrambled to her feet, but this time she was not alone. Something shifted in the shadows around her. Faces began to emerge from the darkness, not just the children, but adults, 2 men and women with sunken cheeks and hollow eyes. All were stuck in that horrific state between life and death, seeking only to ensnare her into their endless torment. "Join us," a tall figure murmured, the words wrapping around her throat like a vice. She felt the urge to step closer, to let them pull her into their despair. A warm glow filled her, tempting, but she clung to the last dregs of her will. "No. I won't," she shouted, startling herself with the force of her conviction. She took another step back, the truth hammering home. They too had been caught in this twisted game. Rebelling against it hadn't saved them. In that moment, the wind shifted. She would be lost unless she escaped this place, these people. But how? A light far ahead, amidst the trees, the faintest flicker, dancing bright against the surrounding darkness. Sarah took off again, plunging towards it, her only hope, yelling into the night, "Help me!" The shadows whispered and swirled around her, reaching, but she pushed on. The bright light grew closer, a beacon against the ink. But as she neared it, she heard a new sound, a soft, sinister giggle behind her. They were close, too close. Fear skyrocketed anew as she felt her energy waning. Her legs burned, and despair clawed at her resolve. Would she make it? Could she inch through this living nightmare? Just as she grasped the edge of that light, the giggles erupted once more, now sharp and violent, along with a voice, hissing like a serpent, "You can't escape us. We'll always find you." Her heart plunged. The light was not salvation, but a trap. Then, all at once, everything went black. "Don't abandon us," they sang, the sound echoing around her. The last thing she felt before losing herself was the cool kiss of dread wrapping tighter around her. What lay ahead, now that she had stepped into darkness? Would she be the next lost soul, forever calling for help in these woods? Darkness swallowed her whole. Sarah's heart raced, pounding like a drum against the suffocating silence. Her thoughts became a chaotic whirlwind, desperately grasping for clarity. Where was she? Cold and clammy fingers brushed against her skin, sending shivers coursing down her spine. There was a tangible weight in the air, thicker than the black around her. "Help," she gasped, but her voice felt muted, swallowed by the void. Then, a flicker of awareness washed over her. Footsteps, light but deliberate, crept through the darkness, echoing softly like whispers. They surrounded her, an invisible circle of malevolence. Sarah held her breath, instinctively knowing she wasn't alone, yet fear anchored her where she stood. "Sarah," a voice crooned, familiar yet twisted. It coaxed her like a lullaby, luring her to a precipice she couldn't see. It was a voice from her childhood, gentle and warm, but now it sent spikes of ice through her core. "Come back to us." "No. Not you," she shouted, shaking her head violently. She turned, but the shadows congealed, morphing around her, taunting her with their cacophony of insidious laughter. She squeezed her eyes shut, praying for the strength to fight back. Just then, in an instant, she felt the air shift, a surge of energy whispering through her. "Don't fight it. You belong with us now," they sang in unison, the chorus clutching at her mind, wrapping around her thoughts like a serpent. "Join us, forever." As their voices ebbed and flowed, a pang of guilt emerged in her chest. Were these lost souls calling to her truly evil? Hadn't she, in some way, abandoned them? Doubt gnawed at her, but she clutched at a sliver of resolve. "I want tea," she insisted, shaking her head defiantly. "I need to get out." With every ounce of will left in her, Sarah forced herself to take a step back, feeling an unseen wall against her retreat, as though the shadows were pushing her back toward the void. She could feel the temperature drop, the chill biting deeper into her skin. "Please!" she shouted, pushing harder against the invisible force, feeling it buckle slightly. "Let me go." Another giggle erupted, this one close, a hot breath against her ear. Panic surged. No. She couldn't stay here, she wouldn't. With strength she didn't know she had, she surged forward, launching herself into the oppressive dark. Suddenly, blinding light erupted around her. Instinctively, she raised her arms to shield her face. When the light faded, Sarah staggered back, eyes wide. She stood at a clearing, surrounded by trees that twisted and curled like gnarled fingers reaching for her. The air crackled with static, alive with danger. A figure emerged at the edge of the light, an unsettling smile carved across its face. It was a man dirt-covered and wild-eyed, clad in tatters that spoke of darkness. "You found your way, did you?" he asked, his voice dripping with amusement. "Who are you?" she gasped, glancing back into the shadows, dread pooling in her stomach. "What do you want?" He stepped closer, eyes glittering with malice. "I can help you if you're willing to pay the price." Breath hitching, Sarah felt the encroaching laughter behind her, the children and adults in the dark, closing in once more, renewed by her hesitation. The ground beneath her quivered as a series of childish giggles echoed back, an unholy symphony of terror. "Time's running out," he warned, extending his hand. "The deeper you linger, the harder it'll be to escape." Frozen between the promise of an exit and the dread creeping ever closer, Sarah's mind spun. Who was this man? What price could save her? "Choose, Sarah," he urged, voice sharpening like a blade. "They are coming. You must decide now." Holding her breath, she weighed her choices as the giggles swelled, dark promises urging her forward. Would she trust this stranger with her fate, or dare to face the shadows once more? The forest pulsed around her, thick with suspense. What decision would she make, and what would it cost her? As the shadows inched closer, she felt the strands of the darkness tugging at her heart, and a chilling realization gripped her: the price could be higher than she ever imagined. Panic gripped Sarah like a vice. The man's outstretched hand beckoned her, almost glowing against the encroaching darkness. She could see desperation in his eyes, but also something darker, an insatiable hunger for her compliance. The laughter grew louder, taunting her, wrapping around her sanity, threatening to draw her back into the swirling abyss. "Make your choice," he insisted, his voice a mixture of silk and steel. She could feel the heat radiating from his body as he stepped closer, an unsettling warmth in a place that felt so cold. "You don't want to stay here. Trust me." Trust? It was a dirty word here, nothing felt safe. Just behind her, the shadows formed shapes, twisting into grotesque faces that hissed her name. "Sarah, come back," they whispered, their voices dripping with age and sorrow. She glanced back, her heart pounding, and froze. A small figure stood at the edge of the shadows, a girl, dirty and pale, with eyes like dark pools. "Help me," the girl pleaded, her voice breaking as she reached out a tiny hand. "They want to let you go." Sarah felt a surge of empathy. This was someone lost, someone trapped. But what if this was just another trap, another way to lure her back? The man chuckled softly, sensing her conflict. "That's only a reflection of your past, Sarah. Do you really want to live it again?" Time was slipping through her fingers. The shadows closed in tighter, dragging her closer to the darkness. Every instinct told her to run, to escape, but the girl's voice called out, wrapping around her heart like a vine. "You can save me if you choose." The air crackled with tension as Sarah registered the implications of her decision. To help this girl meant risking everything, including her chance at freedom. But how could she abandon another soul, another child? Tears pricked at her eyes. "I don't know what to do," she screamed, the desperation punctuating her words. "Do it. Help us." The shadows chorused, their cacophony rising to a fever pitch. The man's laughter blended with theirs, a sickening harmony that made her stomach churn. "Help them?" she echoed, glancing at each entity concealed in the dark. "What will it cost me?" "Everything," the man said simply, an easy grin spreading across his face. "Everything you have ever loved, everything you hold dear." Suddenly, a visceral chill shot through her veins. She thought of her family, her friends. Could she sacrifice their memories? No, she whispered, shaking her head violently. I won't do that. Time is running out. He lunged further toward her, the shadows drawing back just enough to let his words slither through. Let go of your fear, Sarah. Embrace the darkness instead. She squeezed her eyes shut, gritting her teeth, battling with the adrenaline coursing through her. This man was not a savior, he was a deceiver masked in friendliness. The pleading from the small girl persisted. Help, don't leave me. Cracking open her eyes, Sarah met the girl's gaze. It was as if the ice around her heart melted just for a moment. But as the laughter crescendoed, her resolve hardened again. No! She shouted, spinning to face the man. I want to let them take me. I want to join you. The darkness roared, more furious than ever. Shadows writhed around her like angry serpents, flaying the air in a desperate grasp. Just as they lunged toward her, Sarah sparked with courage, grounded by defiance. She could turn, she could fight. But as she prepared to escape, a scream pierced through the chaos, freezing her in place. Sarah! The girl's shriek echoed, mingling with the laughter as the darkness surged. In that moment, Sarah realized the true cost of her choice. She felt the shadows claw at her skin, the chill seeping into her bones. The man smiled wider, his voice a sinister hiss in her ear. Now you see the truth. The shadows twisted tighter, and reality warbled, fracturing around her. Just as Sarah was about to make her final choice, the pieces of her world began to unravel, opening a gaping rift beneath her feet. Before she could scream, before she could choose anything at all, she fell. Down into a darkness deeper than she'd ever known. What awaited her at the bottom? Would she find a way back or plunge into the abyss forever? A chilling voice echoed in her mind. Welcome home, Sarah. The fall seemed endless. Air rushed past her, cold and biting. It was like plummeting off a cliff into the unknown while a heavy weight sank in her stomach. The darkness enveloped her completely, swallowing her screams as she gasped for breath, her heart racing like a wild drum. Suddenly, she hit the ground, hard. The impact jarred her, and she lay on a surface that felt cold and damp, like the earth after a heavy rain. She forced her eyes open, squinting against the pitch-black void surrounding her. It felt alive, pulsing with a rhythm that thrummed beneath her skin. She tried to push herself off the ground, palms pressing down against the moist earth, but it clung to her like it wanted to hold her down, to keep her there forever. Hello? Her voice came out weak, swallowed by the suffocating silence. No response. The memories of laughter and whispers of the shadows still echoed in her mind, each fading moment sending pangs of dread through her. She was lost in a realm that didn't play by the rules of her world. Trembling, she got to her feet, the ground squelching beneath her. She took a cautious step forward, bracing herself for whatever lay ahead. The air was thick with an unsettling heaviness, a sweet metallic scent that tasted like fear. With each breath, it felt harder to pull air into her lungs. As she moved, shadows danced at the edges of her vision. They flickered like flames, ephemeral, tempting her to look closer to follow. Vision blurred, she stumbled forward, her feet dragging. But with every step, her heart whispered warnings. Something was watching Sarah. The whisper was soft yet insistent, reverberating through the hollow darkness. Each syllable crept into her bones, igniting a flicker of recognition. Sarah, who's there? Panic ignited in her chest, igniting the very shadows she feared. Show yourself. A form materialized, emerging slowly from the dark. A woman, ghastly pale, her face marred with deep shadows. And the eyes, they were voids, bottomless and dark. You cannot escape, Sarah. You must make a choice. What are you talking about? She shifted back but stumbled, fear gripping her in a chokehold. I already chose. The woman's laughter was a raspy echo, an unsettling melody that wormed its way into Sarah's thoughts. Choices ripple through the dark. Each path leads you closer or further away from what you truly want. Let me go. Sarah screamed, fists shaking at her side. I want to go home. Home? The woman's lips twisted into a grin that seemed far too wide for her face. You can't go home. You don't belong there anymore. The shadows stirred, shifting along the ground like restless spirits. The air felt heavier, thick with despair. Where am I? What do you want from me? Choices, dear. You must choose. Save the girl or save yourself. Save who? Confusion blurred her thoughts. There was another girl, a mere flicker in her memory, a lost child amidst the darkness. She felt sweat drip down her temples. Panic coursed through her veins. There's much at stake, the woman hissed, her form growing clearer amidst the swirling shadows. What will it cost you? Will you abandon her for yourself? Before Sarah could respond, a horrific wail broke through the stillness, a heart-wrenching echo that throbbed deep within her chest. The girl. The memory surged back, and the realization struck she couldn't let this girl remain trapped. Could she really leave her? As the shadows crept closer, coiling around her ankles like serpents, Sarah's vision narrowed. Choices echoed ominously in her mind, each pulse drowning in the weight of uncertainty. Make your choice, Sarah. The woman leaned in closer, her breath cold as ice. Suddenly, a screech echoed from the shadows. Sarah, please. With her heart slamming against her ribcage, Sarah's voice rang out, trembling but fierce. I will save her. The darkness erupted around her, swirling in a chaotic frenzy, and Sarah's world began to fracture again. No, no. She cried, fear clawing at her throat. The weight was crushing as the shadows closed in tight. Would her choice be enough to quench the darkness? Or would it drag her down into its insatiable depths? Just then, a bright light blinked in the distance, a flicker of hope amidst the chaos. Was it real? She had to know. As she propelled herself toward the glow, the darkness roared in anger, and the woman's voice screamed, you can't escape. What would happen when she reached the light? Would it lead her to salvation, or was it merely another trap? For just a split second, Sarah hesitated. Then she ran. The light shimmered like a star at dawn, pulsating gently, beckoning Sarah closer. Each step felt like a battle against the weight of the night, the shadows writhing and screeching as they tried to hold her back. Her heart raced wildly, and the chilling voice of the pale woman echoed in her mind, you cannot escape. The glow expanded, revealing contours to the darkness around her, twisted branches, gnarled roots, and patches of foul-smelling muck. The space hummed, thrumming under her feet like the distant growl of thunder. As she pushed forward, the brightness pressed against her, whispering promises of salvation. Please let me in, she murmured, desperation leaking through every syllable. As she stretched out her hand toward the radiant border, the shadows shrieked in protest. They lunged at her ankles, pulling her back with icy fingers. The sensation was like drowning, as if the darkness was a thick tar, and she could feel her skin crawling. Sarah. The voice stabbed through the chaos, feminine, scared, yet persistent. It clawed at her heart, dragging her thoughts back to the lost girl entwined in her memories. I'm here. The flicker dimmed for a moment, the light flashing like a fading heartbeat. Panic surged through her, tightening around her throat. I'm coming. Just hold on. With renewed determination, Sarah kicked the shadows away and lunged for the light. A sudden surge of warmth enveloped her as she broke through the barrier, and for an instant, she felt safe. But reality shattered when she stumbled onto a familiar sight, a living room, cozy and warm, filled with soft couches and family photos. It was eerily comforting, but something felt wrong. Mom? She called out, voice trembling. No answer. The air was thick with expectancy. She turned slowly, scanning the room, but it was empty. The silence deepened her unease. The walls pulsed once more, mirroring the darkness behind her as it clawed at her mind, as if threatening to pull her back at any moment. Sarah, the anguished whisper came from a shadow cloaked in the corner, a small girl, her face a blend of fear and confusion. "Help me. Where are you?" Sarah gasped, rushing closer. This girl was the essence of life, eyes wide, lips trembling in fright. She looked like a part of Sarah's own past, a fleeting reflection of innocence. The girl pointed at a sleek, dark door on the far side of the room. "In there. I can't go alone." "You'll be okay. I'm right here," Sarah replied, but doubt wormed its way through her resolve. That door was an abyss, a threshold to the unknown. Behind her, shadows were creeping again, slow but persistent. The pale woman's laughter clawed at the edges of her consciousness. "You must decide, save the girl or lose yourself forever." Feeling trapped, Sarah's heart raced as she glanced between the girl and the door. If she stepped through, could she truly save them both? Or was the door merely a path into deeper darkness? The shadows hissed, urging her forward while fear consumed her. "Please, I can't do this alone." The girl's ethereal voice broke through her thoughts, pulling her closer to the threshold. Still, the weight of dread gripped her. What if? Just as she hesitated, the shadows lunged, swirling out from the edges, wrapping around her legs. Their cold touch sent shivers down her spine. "Make your choice, Sarah." The room trembled, the play of light and dark spinning out of control. Sarah felt the walls closing in around her. In that harrowing moment, she closed her eyes and took a deep breath. What was truly at stake? Was this all part of the game, or the way out? With a final glance at the girl, heart pounding, she stepped towards the door. What awaited her on the other side? Would she find salvation, or was it a descent into hell? As the door creaked open, a chilling wind gusted through, and she felt a familiar presence slip in behind her. Sarah. Her breath caught. Who was it now lurking in the shadow behind her? Would it be friend or foe? The door swung open, revealing a dark hallway that seemed to swallow the light whole. A gust of icy wind rushed past Sarah, sending goosebumps spiraling across her skin. The familiar presence behind her seemed to pulse with an energy that sent a shiver down her spine. She could feel it, a shadow clinging to her, whispering promises and threats all at once. "Sarah." The voice came again, soft yet draped in menace. It was hauntingly familiar, mingling with her own fears. She turned slowly, half expecting to see someone she could trust, but instead found only a smirk dragging across the silhouette, a grotesque parody of someone she used to know. "Who?" she began, but the words died in her throat. "Did you really think you could escape?" The shadow laughed, low and twisted. Each phrase warped in her ears like an unsettling melody, echoing in the darkened corners of her mind. She tore her gaze away, paralyzed by dread. Looking down the hallway, shadows crawled along the walls, forming shapes that resembled claws, all grasping for her. It felt alive, a sentient darkness intent on trapping her. Heart racing, Sarah stepped back toward the door, unsure if it still led to safety or deeper into despair. "Don't you want to save her?" The shadow hissed, the mocking tone burrowing itself into her thoughts. "Get away from me," she shouted, voice trembling. But the girl, the terrified child, was still there, small and fragile, pointing at the depths of the hallway. "She needs us. Stop." Sarah gripped her head, the pressure of choices pressing down on her like a heavy stone. "Choose wisely or lose everything." Again came the whisper, slithering into her ears, making her legs feel like lead. Each second felt like a countdown, each shadow more threatening than the last. She looked at the child. "I have to help you, but I don't know how." Tears stung her eyes, and it dawned on her, this hallway was a test. Her mind raced, searching for fragments of her past that might help her piece it all together. "Just come with me," the girl begged, her eyes shiny with desperation. "We need to find the light." The shadows behind her roared in anger, curling around Sarah's ankles, dragging her down. Panic surged, but there was a flicker of determination deep within. The girl had to know something. "Okay," she shouted over the noise. "Okay, I'll try." Taking a deep breath, Sarah pushed past the shadow that haunted her and sprinted down the hallway. The darkness clawed at her, wrapping tendrils of ice around every inch of her. She stumbled but found her balance, eyes fixated on the faint glow that flickered at the end of the corridor. "Faster, faster," the girl urged, her voice cutting through the chaos, fueling Sarah's resolve. The glow increased as they approached, illuminating haunting memories, days of laughter and warmth, now twisted into nightmarish echoes of the past. But then, the floor beneath her feet shifted, becoming something wet and slimy, dragging her down. She screamed, feeling fingers close around her wrist. They were cold, clammy, and soaked in panic. "Let go!" she cried. The darkness pulsed around her as she fought against it. But shadows were relentless, she could feel them pulling her apart, grinding into her. The whisper escalated, merging with the girl's desperate pleas, "We can't stop now. We have to reach the light." With an almost primal scream, Sarah forced her body forward, lunging toward the glow that now felt intoxicatingly close. Just as she reached the threshold, the darkness unleashed one final surge, dragging her back, leaving her teetering on the brink. Her fingers brushed against something smooth and warm, the edge of the light, before the shadows swirled around her, a final desperate grip threatening to pull her under. "Sarah!" the girl cried as if sensing the threat escalating. The light flickered, pulsing like a heartbeat. It felt so close, and yet the shadows tightened their embrace, dragging her nearer to the abyss. As cold dread filled her, she felt her grip slipping. What would happen next? Would she fall into darkness forever, or could she find a way to shatter the shadows surrounding her? The answer surged forward, brewing more terror, blurring the line between sacrifice and survival. Would she find strength to defy the darkness? Or was it too late? The last shreds of light began to fade as a chilling laughter echoed from the shadows, signaling the uncertain fate awaiting them both. "Time's running out, Sarah." With a surge of desperation, Sarah grasped the warmth of the light, feeling its pulse thrum against her fingertips. The shadows howled their fury, clawing at her like wounded beasts. "No!" she screamed, crouching as she fought against their frigid grip. "I want to let you take me." The girl's voice pierced the chaos, "Grab my hand. We can make it together." In that fleeting moment, the bond of shared fear ignited a flicker of courage deep within Sarah. She reached back toward the child, willing her terror to dissolve into strength. "I'm coming." With one final push, she lunged toward the glow, pulling the girl along with her as they broke free from the suffocating darkness. Bright light exploded around them, washing away the oppressive weight of despair. The abyss receded, shadows fled like frightened ghosts. But as they soared through, Sarah felt a violent tug. The shadows were not done with her yet. "Help!" she screamed, her voice echoing in the radiant void. But the girl held tight, squeezing her hand with a grip that felt like hope, warmth, and determination combined. Together, they raced toward the light, the darkness trailing behind, howling as though torn apart. And then, as if an invisible barrier had shattered, they burst through the other side. The world opened up around them, a verdant garden bathed in sunlight and laughter, scents of fresh flowers wrapping around them like a comforting blanket. Where are we?" Sarah gasped, looking around. The contrast was staggering, a vibrant sanctuary blooming before them, filled with children playing, laughter ringing like crystal bells. Yet something still felt off. "Look!" The girl pointed to a figure at the edge of the garden, an older woman. Her soft features radiated kindness, her eyes swirling with ancient wisdom framed by laughter lines. "Mom!" Sarah cried, tears brimming as recognition surged through her heart. She raced toward her mother, but just as she reached out, a veil of shadows wisped around the edges of the garden. "Sarah! No!" The girl screamed, her voice urgent, pulling Sarah back. "If you cross back, the darkness will catch you. We've escaped it together, don't let it claim you now." Fighting against conflicting memories, Sarah felt the warmth of her mother's love pulling her forward like a compass. But the shadows crept ever closer, stretching out their limbs like gnarled fingers seeking to drag her back to despair. "What do I do?" she cried, her heart torn asunder. "I can't leave her. I can't." The girl's eyes glimmered. "Then we fight together. You can see the light, Sarah. We just have to keep moving forward." As if on cue, the shadows roared, thrashing against the vibrant landscape. The garden trembled, but where fear had risen, so too had Sarah's resolve. Together, with hands clasped tight, they turned their backs on the shadows and took a step toward the sunlight. With every stride, barriers cracked, and the laughter of the children around them grew louder, a collective symphony of hope and defiance. "Together! We can't look back!" the girl yelled, her voice now harmonizing with the laughter, strengthening their unity. With each step toward the warmth, Sarah felt pieces of her old life unravel and fall away, the darkness unspooled like a frayed thread from a shroud, each memory freeing her spirit. And then, with one final burst of courage, they lunged into the sunlight, and the shadows shrieked as light engulfed them, banishing the last remnants of fear. Silence. Peace. Sarah blinked against the brightness, finding herself in a field filled with daisies, rays of sunlight flooding her senses. The little girl was still beside her, now glowing with a gentle radiance. The shadows were nowhere in sight. "We did it!" the girl cheered, and they both collided into laughter, releasing tension like a balloon bursting into the air. "We are free!" "Free!" Sarah echoed, tears of relief spilling down her cheeks. The essence of that moment settled softly in her heart. The horrors of the past, the fear of losing herself, began to fade as joy celebrated their victory over darkness. It would still exist, lurking beyond the edges of their new world, but they had each other. Walking hand in hand, they wandered into the meadow, laughter trailing behind them like a melody. It was time for them both to find a new path, a new beginning. As they ventured forward, Sarah knew she was safe and free, not just from the house but from the shadows in her mind. And though the shadows may linger forever on the periphery, she would always fight to find the light. The end. And now, this is the moment to show your support. You need to subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss the next exclusive stories. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm and flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about the ending. Your voice matters. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Only true fans understand the importance of supporting the channel through these actions.